And we've got Ebumolu Adegboruwa, a legal practitioner, here with us. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Help me make sense of this. First of all, I did ask Emmanuel about kidnapping. He did say, cultism, that they are insurrection by extension. And so I've checked insurrection here, meaning a violent uprising against an authority in government or government. And is that really what the law says? It's insurrection by extension?
I have never had, and I'm surprised listening to my learned friend. When you define insurrection under the law, it has no extension, because by that, it will mean that it will be subject to the whims and caprices of the person who is in power. Insurrection in law connotes two things. It must be violent, it must be an uprising to overturn a government, and then the violence of it must involve bearing arms. What is going on in the Southeast has nothing to do with insurrection. It's agitation, mobilizing opinion that is contrary to an established opinion or an established authority. And it's a peaceful one in the sense that nobody has been killed by Kanu. He actually started by saying, I want the government to conduct a referendum within the Southeast to determine whether they want to remain in this part called Nigeria. And I think that was a legitimate demand. If somebody says, I have carried out a survey, I know my people, there's a feeling for self-determination, there's an agitation for self-determination, so we want to conduct a referendum. That was the first thing he asked the government of Nigeria. And make no mistake about it, it's just the way Mr. Nnamdi Kanu is going on about this. Every citizen has a right to civil disobedience. Every citizen has a right to form an opinion that is different from the one established either by government or by any other authority. But you cannot on your own take the laws into your hands. And I don't think within the perimeters of what is going on in the Southeast now, I cannot tell you that Kanu has taken laws into his hands. Speeches do not constitute actions. You must weigh what he has done. He's already under trial for treasonable felony, for this insurrection, for wanting to levy war against Nigeria, for setting up a radio station. So he's under trial. If he has taken up any other action beyond the one for which he's been tried, he's entitled to be arraigned again and be tried. And once the federal government has activated the Federal High Court to revoke his bail, the Attorney General of the Federation has already initiated process to revoke his bail based on the fact that he has infringed upon the conditions of those bails. It is sufficient to await October when he will appear in court and find out whether there are enough evidence on the side of government to revoke that bail. But without waiting for the court to take a determination, an attempt to arrest him, an attempt to confine him, an attempt to do any other thing would be to present a situation of fait accompli before the court. It will be a situation of the federal government taking law into its hand now.
If we look at section 271, subsection C, that talks about the prescription by an act of the National Assembly, does that suggest then that Operation Python Dance is illegal?
Clearly, from all indications in law, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has no power to deploy soldiers to quell civil insurrection, to quell armed robbery, to quell assassinations, to quell kidnapping. There's no such power under our law. Section 217 of the Constitution clearly activates a situation whereby the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces is empowered by the National Assembly or an act, and in this case the act is the Armed Forces Act. Section 2176 is referring to the Armed Forces Act, which has detailed the powers of the President and then the functions of the military. Surely, by our law, there is no such power. And I'm not just speaking here. It's been interpreted. This section has been interpreted by the court, up to the Court of Appeal. Justice Aikawa, you remember what happened in Ekiti in 2014, when Dr. Goodluck Jonathan was in power, and soldiers were deployed to Ekiti for a governorship election. And the people who are in power now were in opposition then. And they went to the Federal High Court in Sokoto, and the Federal High Court Justice Aikawa delivered a landmark judgment interpreting Section 217, saying that the President has no power to deploy soldiers for civilian duties. And civilian duties will include election. It will include any other duty that the police is set up to enforce. And indeed, crime is primarily a responsibility of government. Okay, there was an appeal against that judgment, and eventually went to the Court of Appeal. And Justice Aboki in 2015 delivered a landmark judgment in the Court of Appeal, affirming the judgment of Justice Aikawa that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has no power to deploy soldiers for civilian or purposes, or even for ordinary matters that are covered by the regular law enforcement agencies. Thereafter, in Lagos again, in 2012, we embarked on a civil process by which we were challenging the president in respect of subsidy. I was on Pangrove with late Bamdela Turu, with NLC. We were moving from Yaba and moving on the streets to go to Ikeja to deliver a letter to the governor. And soldiers came and were shooting. And then soldiers were deployed all over Lagos. And Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila went to the Federal High Court in Lagos. Justice Buba delivered a landmark judgment also and said that the federal government has no power to deploy soldiers on the streets of Lagos for any other purpose other than Section 217C, which is about territorial integrity, insurrection, or that Nigeria is at some threat of aggression by an external force. And that's where the law stands today. So I don't think it is proper for anybody to say that the president has power to deploy soldiers.
What about Section 217C, where it talks about suppressing insurrection and acting in aid of civil authorities?
That will be that there's a request from the civil authority. There's a request, and in this regard, for instance, there's this OP MESA all over the Federation. There's a request by governors through the Commissioner of Police, through the Inspector General of Police, to the Chief of Army Staff or the authorities of the Army to complement the efforts of the police. They will be in the background. So there must be a request. It will not be the Chief of Army Staff himself that will wake up one day and say, I declare Operation Python Dance. And that Python Dance will be that it will be seeking for kidnappers, and from kidnappers suddenly they will find themselves conducting exercise at the house of Kanu. That cannot be the case, sir.
But there are those who, maybe you should also interpret this for us, where they decide Section 218 and then they go all the way up until 3, where they say the president may, by directions in writing and subject to such conditions as he think fit, delegate to any member of the armed forces of the Federation his powers relating to the operational use of the armed forces of the Federation.
Well, if the president himself has no power to deploy soldiers to quell civil unrest, criminalities, what the person delegating the power cannot do, the person he is to delegate the power to cannot also do it.
So is this an abnormal...
So if the president has no power to deploy soldiers, he cannot delegate that power to the Chief of Army Staff or to the Chief of Defense Staff.
But it says here that direction in writing. If the president may, by directions in writing and subject to such conditions as he may think fit, delegate to any member of the armed forces of the Federation his powers relating to the operational use of the armed forces of the Federation.
The operational use of the armed forces is what has been outlined in Section 217. It's not at large. That operational use is what is enumerated in Section 217. Otherwise, the president will just wake up one day and ask soldiers to come and take up Channels Television. The purpose of that operational use must be that it is meant to quell external aggression. It is meant to quell, to protect the territorial integrity of Nigeria. It is meant to suppress insurrection. And that operational use will then go along with the established act of the National Assembly, which is the Armed Forces Act. And in the Armed Forces Act, there is nowhere the army is authorized to attack civilians, to attack armed robbers, to attack kidnappers, to attack assassinators. There's nowhere at all.
Now, the intention of the army has been interpreted in different ways, particularly about Python Dance 2. But I have a statement here which also reminds us that the army they've executed similar field training exercises like that of Operation Python Dance 2. They say both in North Central and Northwest, nicknamed exercise Habin Kunama 2 last April. The exercise was concluded in Jos, Kaduna, and Kano. And they say right now there's another exercise covering parts of Southwest and all of South-South, nicknamed Crocodile Smile. So the field exercises, he says, they're planned, they're budgeted and approved for since last year, and therefore they say there's no basis for hue and cry about the operations in the Southeast.
The multiplicity or duplication of an illegal exercise will not otherwise make it legal. If the president likes, let him deploy soldiers in all the 36 states of the federation. It will not make it legal. What makes the exercise of deployment of soldiers legal is Section 217. And so I believe that the fact that there are such exercises in some parts of the federation will not justify the continuance of it. And for us as citizens, we are tired of military rule. If you recall the experience of Nigerians, 1966, 1983, we are tired. What we have said by our conduct in returning to democracy is that we want civilian rulership. We want a system whereby we are used to what we see, and which is that we relate to the regular authority that is established by law to deal with civil unrest. Section 4 of the Police Act is very clear. The duty of enforcing law is that of the police. If Nnamdi Kanu or any other Nigerian has done any act or action that is against any law, it is the duty of the police to go there, either arrest him or send an invitation to him. Surely not the military. So even if you have Operation Python Downs in Jos, you have it in Borno, you have it in Lagos, it will not justify the reason. And I think as in the stage you have gotten to in Nigeria, all civil military personnel should go back to their barracks. Now, I watched yesterday the Inspector General of Police at an interactive section in respect of the coming election in Alabra. And he made a statement which is very laudable and says that, look, it's not the duty of this military to enforce law. And I have it here, I still read it this morning, the Inspector General of Police. He said it categorically that the soldiers should not interfere in the responsibility of the police.
So what is happening?
Law enforcement should purely be for the police.
Are they not collaborating?
If the IG, because maybe he's overwhelmed or needs some backup, because that's what the law says about civilian authority. The civilian authority here is the president or the authority that is recognized by law, which is the police. If they request for backing, the soldiers will be in the background. Because we're not used to a circumstance whereby you see somebody in camouflage, you see somebody bearing arms. I've watched a video this morning where civilians were being asked to drink mud, if it is true, because we don't know what to believe nowadays. But I've seen a video that is circulating on social media already.
The army said they are investigating that matter.
We are on Express Road, allegedly in the southeast, civilians were being beaten with sticks. Civilians were being asked to go inside the mud and to be drinking and staying in the mud. We're not used to that. That's the reason why. That's not the reason why we have democracy. And the president is aware, and that's why he came to contest election. We're in a democracy, governed by the rule of law, governed by presumption of innocence. Whatever it is you say Nnamdi Kanu has done, the law grants him that presumption of innocence. If you think he has violated any law, then you arrest him through the civil authority.
He may not have violated any laws, yes, but what concerns us, especially across the board, is that maybe some level of provocation upon the Nigerian state is happening with the activities of the IPOB. What are your views to it? Is there any provocation really?
Well, personally, I've stated what the law says, that you allow everybody to express themselves. But speaking to you personally, I believe that Mr. Nnamdi Kanu should sit down and appraise his agitation. Because as I sit here, I don't know what he wants. I'm telling you the truth. Professor Ben Wabozi, who is the leader of the concerned elders, came on national TV and said, I have interacted with Mr. Nnamdi Kanu. He told me that if there is restructuring in Nigeria, he will drop his agitation. By tomorrow morning, this man will wake up and say, we want secession. By next tomorrow, he'll say, we want referendum. Another day, he'll say there should be no election in Anambra. What I'm saying is this. Look, resource control today is a product of a struggle. Right from Adakaboro, there was the Kahama Declaration. In a document, we could see what the people of the Niger Delta say they want. Up to Sarawiwa, Movement for the Survival of Ogoni People. They set up the Ogoni Bill of Rights and detail what they want Nigerians to support them for. And that has led to resource control. You can't just keep turning every day as you wake up and think that people will continue to support you We don't know what the man wants. I support his right to express himself, but for God's sake, Nigeria will not depend on how a single individual wakes up every day. And in that individual, we don't know where he's going. We don't know his destination. So I believe that for me, he will help himself and help all of us who want to support him to enforce his rights under the law to make his vision plain.
But moving forward now, what do you think must be done to avoid such unruly behaviors or unruly situations that have been recorded concerning the IPOB and the military? What must be done to quell or reverse that?
Honestly, if you ask me, it's the federal government that is provoking this situation. Because Independent People's Organization has been in existence before the 2015 elections. It's not today. The agitation in the Southeast is based on marginalization. That is the reality of it. And that's why some people say, look, this is just some form of civil disobedience to draw attention to the problems in the Southeast, especially in respect of appointments, especially in respect of federal presence. I have no doubt that that is what is causing that agitation. What is going on in the Southeast is agitation, not insurrection. So, and it's the federal government that's provoking it. Because let me tell you the truth of what is happening in Nigeria. In 1993, Chief Emeka Abiola won an election. It was annulled by the government. The southwest part of this country held this country to ransom from 1993 up until democracy came back in 1998. On a particular day in the morning, I woke up with people, we used trailer and dumped gravel and sand on Tom Milan Bridge so that nobody could pass. But it was clear what we wanted was that we wanted democracy to come back to Nigeria. We didn't want military rule. So I don't see what Nnamdi Kanu is doing in terms of the mobilization and the agitation that is beyond what we did, from 1993 up to 1998. If you go to the churches, you see the churches have some soldiers in quotes with emblems, they call them cherubim, to maintain law and order. You say the man is sewing uniforms and giving them emblems. It's inconsequential.
So you say that you don't think that the Nigerian army should, or should I say the government should act when there seems to be a level of agitation along the lines of secession and a country within a country? You think the Nigerian government shouldn't have acted?
No, it will act in the way that law prescribes, which is that already you are already acting. The man has been arraigned. There's already a trial going on in respect of the alleged attempt to overtake the government, overrun the government of Nigeria. So there's a trial. There's a procedure set up by law which government has activated. My concern is, do you go beyond that procedure? And a trial is coming in October. Whether we like it or not, Nnamdi Kanu must appear in court in October. But by an order of a court.
But if he commits a fresh, or if he's deemed to have committed a fresh offense, irrespective of the trial going on or not, he can still be arrested.
Through the same process with which you arrested me in the first place. It was the police that arrested him. After the arrest, then he was arraigned before the court. The soldiers were not deployed at that time. So there's no reason for this deployment. That's what I'm saying. We're the one provoking the crisis. And the solution to this is for the federal government to ask the python to go back to the forest. We don't see python in the day. We don't see python in the midst of human beings. The pythons should go back to where they belong to. Otherwise, look, if it gets to the fact that every agitation in the country, the military will come out. What we are saying is preparing for 2019 election, because this has political undertone, if you must agree.
How do you mean?
The people of the Niger Delta did a struggle. Whether it was violent, the result was that there was amnesty. The result of that was that there was also resource control. Section 162 of the Constitution gives them 13%. The people of the Southwest did an agitation. The result of that was that Chief Obasanjo was elected as president of Nigeria. The people of the North are doing something in terms of taking over power by military rule. The result is that they have ruled severally, and military rule is illegal. It's against the Constitution for you to take over power through the gun. But that has happened severally, and it has benefited the North mostly. Agitation benefited the Southwest. They got president. Agitation benefits the Niger Delta. They got resource control. You can't stop the Southeast from agitating if all they want is to say, we want presence, we want recognition. It has political undertone. And as I sit here, I do not think that the president will deploy soldiers to the Southwest because of 2019 elections, because he knows he's banking for votes. So people are saying, from what I've read in the comments, the reason why there's soldier in the Southeast is because the APC government didn't receive votes in 2015, and they don't expect votes from there. So they don't care what happens in that place.
Even though
it has political undertones.
Even though they say that will be speculative because.
Well, I'm just saying it. I've told you I don't agree with the methodology of Kanu.
But you know,
but we have done worse. There's Radio Kudirat. Don't you remember when we were agitating for June 12th election? We set up Radio Kudirat. It was run by a prominent individual in this country. He's still alive. It was meant for agitation, to draw international attention to the problem of the annulment of the election. That's what Radio Biafra is doing.
But look at this, because when I read that particular comment about how they've deployed in different parts of the country, and they say this has been planned, budgeted for since last year. Now, if the law is such that it says, look, you can't deploy military to those areas, how come the plan, it was budgeted for since last year, and now they're executing something that you say the law frowns against?
No, there's always budgeting for national security. The military will not come here and tell you that the National Assembly budgeted for deployment of troops to curb kidnapping. The normal budget for the military is put under national security, and that security covers Section 217. You don't wait until Cameroon comes to take over before you start to look for money. So there's money budgeted already in case there is an attempt to take over our borders, in case there is civil unrest that's leading to insurrection. So there's already budget for the national, for the security of this country. But it's the security that is turning around to take over the roles of the police. And I think once the National Assembly resumes, the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives should urgently give a directive by way of a motion to ask the military to go back to the barracks and submit to civilian authority. We cannot continue to cope with a situation whereby we wake up with people with camouflage and guns every day. We cannot do that. And you know, Section 34 of our Constitution, which is very sacrosanct, says that everybody is entitled to right to human dignity and self-respect. You can't carry horsewhip, you can't carry stick and be beating civilians. Because until you can convince me that Kanu is bearing arms, if I see him carrying gun or is distributing arms to people, that's when you talk about taking over government. If it's just to be calling people zoo, be calling people animals, he's just it goes to a matter of upbringing. But if it goes to a matter of speeches, which is still covered by law.
What if you say those speeches are capable of causing violence, disaffection in the country?
You arrest him and charge him to court. That is the solution, Chamberlain. It's not to deploy soldiers to shut his mouth. If he has uttered any speech which is capable of inciting insurrection, of course you will then go ahead and arrest him, and you arraign him for another offense, different from the way for him is facing.
Even if he's fueling hate speech?
No, but let's not go into this problem of hate speech, honestly, because I don't see anything like that in our laws. Section 39 of the Constitution grants to every citizen the freedom of expression. However, that freedom is limited to ensure that whatever you say is within the law. So if you utter any expression, if you make any expression, you utter any speech that is capable of inciting hatred, you will be charged to court. But not that you put padlock and say, don't talk, it is hate speech. Okay. Charge me to court now and let's go and face it.
We'll look at this, what do we do moving forward when we return in just a moment. Don't go away.
It continues to build up by the day, and gradually it is fast opening up a new chapter on security of lives and the unity of Nigeria. It all started with accusations and then counter-accusations between the Nigerian army and members of the indigenous people of Biafra over an alleged invasion on the compound of the IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu.
I want you to report this accurately and stop relying on the lies of the Nigerian military.
The army claimed it's on a routine exercise.
Chaps, if I will use that, who were later identified to be IPOB members, came to, block the road and said they shouldn't pass. How? And they denied them access. And it was peaceful, and they started throwing stones at them. Missiles. When I mean missiles, stones and things that are hard objects, to the extent of, injuring a soldier on his head, and then they passed out by one lady.
The group
drove from that way with their blaring sirens that woke me up from my siesta I was having in the afternoon, and they went that way to that junction. They reversed, the ammo tank reversed and came back here. Wanted to come in, and my men stopped them here, and they started firing at people right at this very spot.
And since
welcome back, and yes indeed, continuing with our focus on the developments between IPOB and the military. Let's go to Abuja. Makwa's got some questions for you, Abu. Makwa.
Well, Mr. Adegboruwa, what do you say to those who say that this was how Boko Haram started in the northeast as well, and that it went out of hand and now we have had to call the army in to quell certain matters? Do you think that this is a situation that could get out of hand?
Well, this is not, with all due respect, this is not how Boko Haram started. The Boko Haram escalated because the state eliminated Alhaji Mohammed Diko Yusuf. That's what angered. It was initially like an agitation. It was the assassination of their leader that provoked the crisis we have today. And so if you follow the historical narratives, picking out a single individual for elimination has not helped an agitation. As Adakaburu was killed, Saruwa was killed, it didn't stop the Niger Delta militancy. So I still think that the state should go back and learn from history. Killing Nnamdi Kanu, maiming him, arresting him, jailing him will probably not stop what is going on in the southeast. Because if he has no support, he won't be there today. The truth, or as I can see for what is going on, is that his thoughts resonate seriously with people of the southeast. But beyond the people of the southeast, he also needs support. Because in the period of the June 12th election, you will see Air Commodore Dan Suleiman, you will see retired Admiral Ndubuisi Kanu, Pariwane from Niger Delta, all identifying with June 12, Balarabe Musa. I don't think that these kind of speeches I hear from Nnamdi Kanu, but his hatred for other tribes will help that cause seriously. And that's why I think the governors of the Southeast and the leaders of the Southeast must be able to rein in some kind of discussion that will engender some civility, and let there be a document that structures what indeed they want to do. So I don't think this is the same situation with what happened in Boko Haram.
Should we give should we give the benefit of the doubt? Because I mean, in the APC manifesto, they did talk about the fact that yes, they're going to do a lot of reconciliation, set up different committees to look into all this. Should we not just say, well, it's not 4 years yet, give some time that all of this, they'll note it, and then they'll sort some of these things out?
Well, the All Progressive Congress promised to set up a National Conflict Resolution Commission to be able to investigate the various agitations within the polity and embark on reconciliation. We're almost in 2019. The APC system cannot gather, as you can see what is happening within Atiku, Saraki, Alhaji Tinubu and the president himself. That party cannot get his house in order. No convention, almost to the 2019 election. So I believe that that particular political party is not in existence, you know. But having said that, I believe that the president owes this nation a responsibility to unite us. We've become more divided than ever before, either on ethnic lines or religious lines. If there are things that people have pointed out in terms of utterances, in terms of appointments, it's the duty of the president as the father of all to be able to sit down on his own or with his cabinet and find a way towards addressing these agitations. The vice president was in Ibokoda, headquarters of Ilaje local government, some 2 days ago. What stops him from going to the southeast?
But he's gone before.
No, in respect of this agitation,
about this particular one.
Can't he request for a meeting with Nnamdi Kanu and leaders of the southeast?
But yesterday, we also saw northern governors. They also met and they appealed to Nigerians, look, stop beating drums of war, that they'll take a look at some of this. It's better for the country to be together and rather than spreading some of these messages. So shouldn't we also say by extension, yes, since that is on, it may just escalate and then they pull the country together?
I support that we should encourage all agitators, whether for resource control, whether for recognition, whatever it may be. We must approach it in a way that it will not terrorize people. Because there are complaints against the activities of the IPOB, even in the southeast. They are followed in the Facebook in terms of harassment of law-abiding citizens. So we can't continue in that regard. We must find a way towards ensuring that we rein in the tension that is going on in the land. So I commend the governors of the North, and I think that other parts of the country, especially the Southeast, must find a way to ensure that they have constant dialogue with Mr. Kanu and members of the IPOB to ensure that this does not escalate. But the first condition of that is that the troops should go back to their barracks. Otherwise, it will keep provoking that tension.
So what happens in this situation now that Nnamdi Kanu has pulled out of that meeting with the Southeast governors for Friday, slated for Friday, and he has pulled it out saying that he will not be part of that meeting until there is some level of restoration of trust between the Nigerian government and the IPOB?
No, the reason he gave was that there is an attempt to assassinate him. And so if that is correct, then of course preservation of life is the first principle. But beyond that, I think that it is the Operation Python dance that is provoking that withdrawal. If this operation is taken care of, suspended, withdrawn, and the police is allowed, with support of the military, to take the front responsibility of maintaining law and order and peace, I believe that that dialogue will resume and we'll get out of this tension. Because we cannot go into 2019 election in the way we are currently. And there's an election coming up in Anambra in November. And we can't continue in this tension-soaked atmosphere to expect that there will be election in a way that you can predict a civil conduct that will produce a governor.
But what did the Southeast governors do when they tried to rein them in and they keep pulling out and keep threatening no elections here, threatening violent activities? Do they then say, well, if you break the law has to do what it has to do?
No, if you recall, Chamberlain, earlier when the Odua People's Congress started in the Southwest, it was a violent organization. It was asking for self-determination, all manner of...
Not that we're encouraging violent organization.
No, what I'm saying is that over time, people started engaging them. We met with their leaders, Dr. Fashion and Chief Gani Adams, and began to educate them on the need for them to adopt. We encouraged them to go and register companies, that you can get all our youth who are jobless to become engaged and be taking up security for our people, and actually work with the police towards curbing criminalities. And you see that today in the Southwest, Odua People's Congress has contributed tremendously towards stabilizing peace and reducing crime. Most neighborhoods now engage them to combat criminals. So I think it's the responsibility of the leaders in the Southeast in particular. I don't think it's proper that you allow Mr. Nnamdi Kanu, whose agenda we don't know, who wakes up with different speeches from different sides of the mouth every day. They should be able to engage him and get him to structure a program that everybody reading it can run with that vision. As it is now, I don't know what he wants.
Do you think that perhaps the Eastern governors have that level of harmony that suggests that the East is actually ready for a developmental plan?
If you look at what is going on in the country, the East has been ready right from the period we ended the war. But the federal government has neglected them totally. Everything going on in the Southeast is a matter of self-development by the individuals, by their indigents, giving their industry and diligence. And I must commend that. But we cannot allow the situation to rubbish that. All we ask for, all I think the people of the Southeast are asking for is federal presence. I mean, who is the most notable person in this regime that you can point out from the Southeast? Chief Ogbonnaya Onu, Minister of Science and Technology. And what is the technology? I mean, nothing is happening in that ministry. What I will say, therefore, is that there's no way you can stop this agitation.
What about Minister of Labour?
Well, you can see so many strikes.
They just started out some strike now.
So many strikes going on in the country. We're talking about positions that influence decisions in security agencies, in terms of Minister of Works and Housing. What is wrong with making somebody from the Southeast Minister of Works and address all the roads in that area? Or even if you don't appoint that person, the person who is appointed there now should focus effort on those areas and let us see that there are developments indeed going on there. How many federal institutions are there? There are none.
You still have the Ikere Madu, the Deputy Senate President, who is...
By election, that's by election.
Yes, but they have powers to make those votes that will work for development in the East?
That should go across board. It should reflect in everywhere, especially in the security. Recently, you saw the thing going on in the social media about the appointments in the National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, whereby there was no single person from the Southeast in those leadership positions. I mean, those things provoke a lot of agitation. And so I think that the federal government, as Nigeria as we exist now, if we still continue to say they should not secede, then bring them on board and recognize them. But I think in this current problem we are facing now, the federal government has embarked on an illegal action by deploying troops, number one, contrary to the Act of the National Assembly, number two, without the approval of the National Assembly.
So you expect the National Assembly to look into this matter upon resumption from the...
A motion urgently should be passed, and all activists, lawyers, Nigerian Bar Association, people of good conscience should be able to appeal to the president, who must have given the directive to withdraw that directive. Let the police take care of whatever it is that is resulting to seemingly break down of law and order. Surely not the military.
Thank you for coming on this morning, Mr. Ebunolu Adegborowa, a legal practitioner. Let's now go over to Abuja and remember the customs arms seizure. Well, who knows?